And what do you think this means now for the sort of immediate future of the South Africans? I mean, in the next few years when this was all going through and the current events that they've got coming up, i.e. like the World Cup, what do you think this means to South Africa as a country and even Africa as a continent?
Well, clearly, South Africa being chosen for the World Cup is fantastic for the African continent. It's about time that we get events of that nature being shown, and for Africans to have the opportunity to see it firsthand. And also, it's not just football. We've also seen it with the IPL, which is the Indian and Pakistani Indian League. And because of the troubles they're having in that part of the world, South Africa again has been chosen as a country to host those cricket matches, but rightfully so. But the thing is, South Africa has a lot of issues with crime. It is one of the most notorious crime capitals in Africa. In fact, we have the most popular Lucky Dube, who sadly was killed by thugs and thieves, and this is a daily occurrence for common South Africans, where they're hijacked and people are taken out of their cars. There's murder, excessively so, above beyond most capitals. So that's another problem in itself.
So each government's going to have to invest quite a bit of money in policing, I guess, corruption and that sort of thing. How do you think that they're going to be able to tackle that?
Well, a lot of the problem we've got with a lot of the African countries is that a good percentage of them are poor. They've got no money, and of course, as we know, the credit crunch doesn't help, because we're the global recession, which everyone's heading for. In fact, South Africa is heading for a recession, and so many other African countries are heading for one or already in one. And if you're already poor and you're going through a lull period, it makes it worse. It makes it 10 times worse. It means that those people who are poor get even poorer. To give some perspective, in many countries, you could have close to about 60 or 70% of people living below the poverty line. And that's less than £1 or less than $1 a day. So it's not a lot of money. Clearly, people are suffering, and governments have run out of ideas. And when they do ask for money from the IMF and the World Bank, the conditionalities by which these monies are allowed them are quite harsh. It means that you're paying money repeatedly so for many, many, many years beyond generations to come, and it doesn't benefit anyone.
No, so really they're also looking for fair game when it comes to trading and so on internationally.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no point, and that's what's happening in South Africa. They've realized that problem. In fact, I'll give a couple of examples. They've liberalized the economy. They've opened their markets. They've encouraged investors to come in. But these investors who are subsidized elsewhere in the world come in and dump their products on the country, and local producers suffer immensely. And in fact, in South Africa, the unions, because South Africa do have a powerful union, we must give that credit. They fight tooth and nail for South Africans and their jobs. And in fact, Zuma is going to have extreme problems trying to negotiate with the unions to how to offer better terms for their workers in South Africa. And as we've seen previously, South Africans are very passionate about their jobs to the extent that xenophobia becomes an issue, as we saw last year. So watch this space.
So this is a big one of his sort of first big jobs, is it, to reconcile the unions?
He'll have to. Otherwise, how are you going to address the issue? How are you going to bring more investors in? How are you going to get more jobs for your people? How are you going to ensure that people can live above the minimum wage? How is it that people can actually be able to take care of their families? When you think about all of that, they will come back to jobs. And without the job, I'm afraid the common man is still poor.
And this is something that you think can be reconciled?
Well,
do you have confidence?
Well, I can't tell you. I'm not part of the South African government, nor am I a member of parliament. But what I can say is that he's got a very difficult task ahead of him. Clearly, his predecessors, of which I've mentioned quite a lot on this broadcast so far, have not been able to address the issue of poverty and address the issues that we've spoken about. And he, who has not come with any policies is expected to bring in the changes. So it makes it slightly more difficult as to how he's going to do that, seeing that he's never been able to explain it to us exactly what it stands for. So it's going to be very, very, very strenuous and very difficult for him.
Okay. So what should those of us outside here in the diaspora be looking to see happening next?
Well, I think South Africa definitely, the part of the G20, recognized around the world, appreciated on the African continent. The South Africans themselves are very proud people. I think they'll do well on balance. Mm-hmm. The issues are what the next 100 days are going to look like for Zuma, because he's very controversial, because of the issues we've mentioned already. It puts him on, he'll be measured slightly differently as it otherwise would have been. Whether that's a good thing or that's a bad thing, I'm not sure. How he copes with that pressure, again, time will tell. But I think it's going to be a very interesting next 100 days, I'd say.
Yeah, and how do you feel the media's covered it so far?
I think that the media has done a reasonable job on the African continent. Elsewhere overseas, it's been lukewarm, but I think on balance it's been okay.
It's been okay. And just to sort of finish off, is there anything that you think that we ought to know or ought to be asking about South Africa so that we can, get a grip of the knowledge and move forward with this and look for a brighter future for South Africa?
Well, I would say when you think about South Africa, think about the rest of Africa. They're no different, the Africans themselves. And for every South African who suffers, every South African who's poor, for every South African who's got no food on the plate today or who has no home to live on, the issues are not exclusive of South Africa and extend beyond their borders and are across the rest of Africa. The issues are the same. Africa has many problems, many issues, and hopefully, if as they say, Gaddafi, who recently, as head of the AU, called for United Africa, if something like that is considered and followed, then maybe Africa may stand a chance.
Okay, and whilst we're on the subject of looking at other parts of Africa, because I know that you're from Sierra Leone, which is celebrating its independence today, so how are you feeling about the independence of Sierra Leone?
Well, Sierra Leone is a country close to my heart. Clearly, it's a good time to celebrate your independence. But what does it mean to be independent? It means for you to be free. It means for you to be able to get a job. It means for you to be able to have your own house. It means for you to be able to have a mill. And it also means that you should be able to go to school and access health care. For large numbers of Sierra Leoneans, this is not a fact. So issues of poverty, inequality, issues of justice, and above all, issues for access. We're not saying give it to them, access for them to have access to education, to have access to healthcare provision is a problem. As we've rightly spoken about South Africa, Sierra Leone is no exception.
Okay, well, Io Johnson, thank you so much. It's been a very enlightening few minutes there listening to you and getting the information. And you do your job very well. Keep up the good work.
Thanks a lot.